All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome for joining us. I'm Shannon McFarland, the head of product marketing here at Intezer. And today we've got a phenomenal panel of 4 executives from various places and types of companies to talk about the problems that we're seeing in security operations centers these days and the challenges that we're facing in 2023. And so I'm going to pass the torch over to my colleague Shaul in just a second, but just to, as you're all joining, one of the things that's going to be throughout this panel, I'll be in the chat. So if you have questions, I'll answer things as I can. And we'll also have a Q&A section at the end. So feel free to drop your questions in anytime as they occur to you, and I'll keep track of those and try to make sure that they get directed to the correct panelist if you have specific questions for specific people, or if you have questions that are general that you're interested in anybody's take on. So just to let you know about that. And then we'll jump into the panelist format right now. And Shaul, I'm passing it over to you.
Thank you very much, Shannon. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be here with my esteemed guests. Before I allow them to introduce themselves, just a few words about myself. My name is Shaul Holtzman. I work at Intezer as in charge of sales engineering, with my own background in security operations, incident response, malware analysis, and forensics. Let's hear from our panelists. Leo, can you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Leo Sanchez. I'm a lead analyst or an SME with Tetra Pak, product owner for the EDR solution, as well as the digital forensics platform, and do most of the bulk of the malware analysis for the organization.
Thank you. Jagriti?
Hey, everyone. This is Jagriti. I have got 10 years of experience in cybersecurity, managing the various cybersecurity initiatives, improvement plans through services like cyber detect and respond, threat monitoring services, vulnerability management, endpoint security, cloud security, and whatnot. Today, I am associated with AB InBev, and I work there as a senior security specialist.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And Johnny, please.
Thank you, Shaul, and a pleasure being with Jagriti and with Leo with us. My name is Johnny Fishbein. I have been the Checkpoint Global CISO and DPO for the last 4 years. Within the Checkpoint team, in the last 20 years and 5 years before that, I built the first SOC in one of the largest financials in the Middle East before the year 2000, and I continue and build another big financial SOC 2 years later. So I can say I have some nice experience managing and building cybersecurity operations from bottom up.
Amazing. Thank you very much, all of you, for that introduction. So our conversation is going to be around security operations, and as everyone has seen, in the materials that we sent before, we're talking about the challenges and possible solutions that we see. But before that, just to understand where we are and how this world looks like, I'd love to hear from you, Johnny, just as a start. And as you said, you've built these SOCs 20 years ago. How have you seen the changes and developments in the SOC world, incident response world, over the past few years? And do you feel like we're on the precipice of another transformation?
So, Shaul, this is a great question. So there are a few pillars that are playing forces here in security organizations, and specifically within SOC organizations. So on one hand, we have economical challenges, shortage on talents, and in the last, COVID was challenging, and in the last year it's been more challenging. But let's start to go in directly to SOC. Only we can see in the mid or very large organizations that they build SOC, and they have SIEM, and they have SOAR, and they have advanced tools. Not all of them I would say, are succeeding, are managing to reduce the noise, and are managing to really identify and deal and mitigate threats where they are taking place. So in the last, let's say, 2 to 4 years, we have seen the industry, cybersecurity industry, developing new tools. There are like 3 letters acronyms. So these tools are built such as MDR, XDR, XPR, and these tools are built to help those organizations that are having a challenge to, let's say, reach maturity within the SOC. You are on mute.
Yes, sorry. Thank you, Johnny. So this gives us, I think, a great starting point, because we've seen over the past a few decades, I've only started to look at it for 10 years ago, but that there were several, I think, transformations with new solutions, like when people started using SIM and then SOAR, and now, as you mentioned, various 3-letter acronyms. I wanted to hear, maybe we'll start with you, Jagriti. Do you relate to what Johnny said, and how do you see these challenges today in the SOC operations world?
For sure. Hey, Sean. As Johnny rightly pointed out, that today we take help of various technologies to ensure that the SOC operations run maturely, and they offer the services that we want to see. So every time there is a new threat or there is something that is making a lot of noise, a SOC analyst will take the help of, say, search engine, would go look for it. Okay, is it something that am I seeing it, or others are noticing it too? And that's where it starts, So it's like finding a needle in a haystack, or rather, you can say finding a needle in needle stack. There is a lot of work that goes behind for us to just know what are these threats. And if I tell you more about it, only 20% of the threats today that we see, which are emerging, they are only 20% of the threats are searchable. That means 80% of them we don't really know. And then we need to take help from various sources only to know more about it. And the biggest challenge that comes, as you know, and we have dealt with it, is that huge amount of false positives. So when there are a lot of false positives, how do you make sure which of these threats are the real threats, where you need to put your resources to make sure they do not, emerge in your infrastructure again?
It's very interesting, Jagriti, and thank you. So Johnny mentioned talent, you mentioned the noise. Jagriti, you mentioned that most of the alerts that you see are not actually searchable, so the data is particular to your environment, and you have to investigate this on your own. And then on top of that, perhaps many of those investigations are actually just false positives, so you just wasted a lot of time. I want to move it to Leo. Leo, do you relate to these challenges, and maybe tell us a bit about what you're seeing on the day-to-day?
No, absolutely. I think the unknown is a big part of the job, because you don't know what you're going to be encountering when it comes to an alert. I think also too, whenever you bring somebody on board for the first time to a team, I think the tools you select are very important, because there's always that learning curve for a new employee, right? When they come on board, they may not have experience in the tools that you have in place, but getting the right tools that can cut that learning curve down for them is helpful, because then you can get them trained up real quickly and active into the participating in the team itself. So, but yes, the unknown is definitely one of those big challenges we face as an organization, because as Jagriti said, there are threats that come in that aren't searchable, right? They're not going to be on VirusTotal. They're not going to be out there publicly. So you have to use your tools that you have in-house to identify them quickly, so that you can make an assessment to proceed forward.
Excellent. And staying with you, Leo, can you tell us, where do those alerts or investigations usually come from? Generally, you don't need to name like vendors, but where do you see these investigations originating from?
I mean, they're definitely going to be on the endpoints, right? So you're going to get that through your EDR solution. And that's where most of the time an analyst is going to spend. I mean, there are other SIM solutions that they'll go through and look at alerts that are generated, but the EDR is where everything is going to come up. And because it's in that central place, you need to make sure that for us specifically, integrations with certain tools are in place, because we don't want our analysts having to jump to different platforms or different tabs in order to get the answer they need, right? So we want to simplify it. We want to give it to them in one central location so that they can make an assessment quickly. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Jagriti, do you agree with Leo's assessment of many threats coming from the endpoints?
For sure. I mean, I think we have seen this happening with our company too. Most of the times, our SOC analyst team would spend their day only to find out or to work on these, incidents that we are seeing on the endpoint tools, and which makes it so rigorous exercise for anyone to go through the tons of, incidents. It's like, I mean, if I tell you, most times people think that if we have, say, plugged in all of our tools to a particular, or say, a centralized tool where we are seeing all the alerts, it doesn't become a detection. So what I'm trying to highlight is that collection is not detection. So if you've plugged all of your solution to one centralized solution and you're thinking that your job is done, it's getting started, right? And then how do you make sure that out of these incidents that you're seeing, which ones are real? So that's the real problem. Also, most times companies are not ready. When I say not ready, we don't have enough playbooks, created in our infrastructure in our company to know that, okay, should we really detect this or should we not? So if we are relying on the solutions, then it becomes really, really hard. So it's like you're giving weightage to the solution, right? To see what kind of events which are likely to happen. So it's like they're most likely to happen. But again, to Leo's point, the unknown, how do you touch the unknown? That becomes a big, big question.
Excellent. The unknown investigations truly take a lot of time. And I want to ask you, Johnny, from another perspective. We hear a lot, and it does sound here also, that the number of alerts overall is growing with time. First, do you agree with that? And if so, what do you think are the reasons for that?
So, well, it's a good question. The number of alerts is growing, but in most cases, SOC, they aggregate, correlate a very big amount of information. And if they have eyes on specific systems this year, they want to increase. And I have never seen a SOC that will tell, guys, we have 20 systems last year. We just want to look 10 systems this year. It's never less. It's more and more. Now, the question is how to avoid unnecessary noise, mitigate false positives. That's one area, very problematic. The second area is, I would say, to check the relevant, important information that if we take care of them, of those alerts, we will be able to mitigate an incident that is really small, and it will not become a big incident, okay? By the way, a big incident is our company name being in the newspapers, or not being able to operate because of a ransomware or a data leak event. So that's why it's so important the SOC has the instrumental part of making sure that the event is going to be small and mitigated or quarantined while it's taking place. Now, what I want to discuss is something new called RBA. RBA is risk-based alerts, meaning that we can analyze the breadcrumbs of an attack. And if we can identify it with the tools we have in the SOC, we will be able to detect, identify, or mitigate every similar attack. The problem is that usually we get alerts, and from a bunch of alerts to say that we have an incident of type X or Y, that's the SOC analyst, or that's the sophisticated tools we have within the SOC. So yes, the role of the SOC is not 100% clear, and there is no real boundaries. And we need to remember that these technologies are still evolving, okay?
Yeah, and when you say risk-based alerts, Johnny, is that something you're already implementing in Checkpoint?
So the answer is yes. About 80 to 85% of my security posture is implemented, surprisingly, with Checkpoint solutions. And we do implement about 15%, 1/5, complementary solutions such as Integer Protect or Integer Analyze, so we can help to understand what's going on. Okay,
Excellent.
per case. And I want to add about Leo's comment about endpoints. People usually talk about endpoints, PC, laptop, etc., Linux, Mac. Guys, servers are also endpoints, okay?
Okay.
So we need to have the tools deployed on servers, because an alert from a server is 10 times more critical than an alert from a laptop, okay? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, and I think everyone here will agree. And we are all, like from my experience as well, we are all very much trained to think of a user endpoint, of a scenario that is driven by a user, while a server-based attack is usually, based on vulnerabilities or an application that is, or a service that it, facing out. So the detection strategy should perhaps change there as well. Going back to you, Leo, I wanted to ask, how are you in Tetra Pak trying to solve these issues, these challenges, at the level of the SOC?
Yeah, and I think the topic or the mention of a budget is also always at play, right? Because you don't have an unlimited budget, so you have to be smart. You have to be almost tactical in how your solutions are set up. And for us, I mean, we know that there is no one solution that solves all your problems. So what we find is, or what we're finding is, that integration has always been a really big key for us, because integrating has a smaller investment financially than, let's say, buying a brand new solution. So it's an easier sell. And we've seen the benefits of having integrations, like, for example, with Integer and the EDR solution, because you get all the answers you need, or most of the answers you need, right there in that one pane, right? Before, when an alert came in, and the SOC analyst has to look up that file hash in Integer, or do analyze it within Integer. But now, because of the integrations and using the API functions, that's all done for them, right? So it saves them quite a few steps. It helps expedite the analysis of the alert, so that way they can quickly make an assessment and say, yeah, this is critical, or this is important. Let's take this action, right? So we're hopefully cutting down the time it takes for them to make that assessment on the threat. But for us, we feel that integrations is definitely a really big key for us. So we're trying to do as much of that as possible.
Thank you very much, Leo. And you touched on a very important point here of automation as a solution. Integer, of course, is one of the players there, but we have a lot of technologies and innovation in the field of security operations automation. And I'd be happy to hear more, guys. And Jagriti, I wanted to ask you, how are you trying or approaching these challenges, and if you can also note on the possible solutions of outsourcing in that field.
Great question, Shaul. I think, like most companies, we are also struggling with this, wherein we have a lot of incident, a lot of alerts coming in from various sources, various tools. And it needs a lot of manual effort in order for us to counter it, right? So if you think that somebody can just, hire tons of resources and make sure that, job is taken care, it is hard. So today, of course, we leverage on integer analyze, and then, we make sure that our alerts, incidents that we see, in our infrastructure is sent, to these automated tools which leverage AI solutions and other various, built-in features, which helps us reduce the manual task. And it's an overhead. If you ask me, it's an overhead on the people. I mean, how long can one sit down and do on the same incident, work on the same incident, and do the same level of root cause analysis every time you see the incident being escalated to a bigger one, right? So for us, the only thing was that we wanted to reduce the noise from the external sources and make sure that we get our mind straight to the job, a job which needs our attention. So that's how we are leveraging on these solutions to make sure that our job is to counter the problem, is to not make the problem or something that is not even a problem to make them a problem. So yes, we are trying to make sure that the problem is countered with the help of these automated solutions so that we can save time and think about future and not just stay with the present. So yeah, just trying to be one step farther than the attackers in that scenario.
Thank you very much, Jagriti. So you also touched on automation, and can you also tell us a bit about the power of or outsourcing or that possible solution? Do you see that in play as well in the field?
Yes, I mean, I think we cannot really emphasize enough that outsourcing plays a very, very big role in making sure the SOC operations become a mature process and doesn't get littered with the menial task, a task that nobody wants to touch, right? So yes, I mean, I think for us to make sure that we are dealing with the problem better, outsourcing has really, really helped us. I think I cannot really emphasize enough on this, that how important it is for any company to make sure that that you spend a little money, but then with that money comes a bigger bonus deal that helps us reduce the noise. So yes, for sure.
Thank you. Leo, on your side, in addition to automation that you're already using, do you also see the benefit in outsourcing certain types of the tasks?
Yes, I think some certain tasks do make sense to be outsourced because they're more time consuming, right? More resource intensive, and you really want your SOC not only just looking at alerts. I mean, it's not just that, but you also want them to develop or come up with ideas as well that will help the organization, right? To help the team. So you want to give them that space for creativity. And I think though that there are some tasks that are totally fine with outsourcing because again, you want your SOC team to develop, you want them to mature and to feel involved, right? So you want to give them that power. So I think it's important to keep that in mind.
That's a really important point because you can outsource a lot, but then as you said, there's knowledge and talent that you want to keep inside and to nurture, having that constant within and the assistance without. It'll be interesting to hear your opinion, Johnny, as the representative here of a security vendor. How do you internally see like security operations? Is it mostly internal, using your talent from inside?
So definitely yes. We even when we need to build a new organization that, for instance, we maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we built the incident response organization. And in the last, let's say, 16 to 18 months, we expanded that organization to become an MDR service. So this is SOC as a service. So for me, as a SOC with about 8 people, it fitted. So for instance, the logs, the alerts, not just the logs, the alerts of my SOC goes to Checkpoint MDR after night hours. In the night, so imagine Tel Aviv. So when it's the night of Tel Aviv, it goes, it's delegated to the MDR service, which is in the US and it's all over the world. So they put an eye, an eye for us during the nights, and we implemented some operations, pager duty, you may know. So if there is a severe alert relevant, there is a path of escalation. And in the morning, we take control over again. But not every organization has an MDR, so they can delegate to. So first of all, we need to look on what our SOC can achieve by their own, and things that are not achievable, we need to delegate to a trustworthy third party. So trust is a challenge in our industry, right?
Yeah.
So sense of urgency, right? So some MDRs, they have too many customers, so they don't really look effectively to what they have to look. So so we need to manage it. And by the way, it's something very important. We need to test our MDR. So, you know, to exercise them, to make sure that they are alert and they worth the penny we are paying for that service, okay? But in the other hand, I understand that many organizations don't have the talent or the budget or the time to spend in this cybersecurity specialty, which is SOC, MDR, SIEM, alerts, reducing the noise, handling forensics, etc.
Definitely. And I think a very important point there you touched on is trying to understand what can the SOC do internally. Maybe there are tasks that currently seem impossible, but maybe either with the right tool or right training, they can take that internally.
So one example that it didn't happen to us, but we see companies coming from on-prem, going to the cloud, and they say, look, we don't have the magnitude of those logs. It's not only the logs, it's a lot of investment. We don't have the tools, we don't have the expertise. So in the next year, we need to gain let's say, close the gap of being experts on the cloud. In the meantime, we will give the logs and the alerts to this party or that solution that will help us to cover. And yeah, it's a true challenge.
For sure. Now, I have a question. I want to start with Leo and Jagriti, and then I want to hear from you as well, Johnny. Let's start with you, Leo. How do you see or do you see any change in priorities in budgeting, for example, for solutions, or priorities for hiring or staffing? Do you see these priorities changing with the current, a bit volatile economic situation?
That's a good question. I mean, I think many organizations are seeing that. I would say for us, not now at this moment. I think, the big priority or the big focus is, again, still trying to get every ounce of value out of our current tools, right, as much as possible, because again, they're not going to open up the checkbook to go allow you to go buy something. So they want to keep things at a certain level. They don't want to hire anymore. They want to keep it pretty level, at the same level, and also continue using the same tool sets that we have, unless there's an absolute need or a gap that needs to be addressed, right? So for us, I think for right now, that's kind of where I think things are at. But other organizations, from what I hear too, are looking for change, right? Either to increase or decrease. It just depends, I guess, really in the industry that they're in and what type of threats they're seeing too as well.
Thank you. Jagriti, same question, but do you see, like, how do you try, or how are you trying to deal with internally with any possible change of priorities? Like if there's something that you could have done before and now you can't, like, how are you handling any change of priorities?
Yeah, great question, Shaul. But if I tell you, as a company, I think we have our focus is to make sure that we deal with the threats better. Okay. And for us, it's zero tolerance mindset. Okay. We trust no one. So when it comes to doing SOC work, our priorities have always been that we make sure that our people are equipped enough, resources have the right tools to make sure that they're able to deal with the problems. Now, coming to the changing scenario, right now things look okay for us, especially in SOC, wherein we have not seen any different trend than what we are seeing in the real world outside today. As Leo mentioned that, some companies, organizations, they are staffing up or some are staffing down. There is a lot of a trend like that. But I think in SOC, and this is a niche field. I mean, this is coming from my own experience. From my, last 10 years, we've not seen a lot of big change happening in SOC, even though the world outside collapsed. Okay, it is because the kind of work we do internally to make sure that our companies are protected better, right? And that job comes with a lot of expertise, a lot of investment of time, tools, patience, money, and everything. So yeah, this is what I'm going to say, Shaul. So yes.
That's a really good answer, and it makes sense that putting security first. That's of course very important.
Yeah.
So allow me to give my view of the
Please,
question.
yeah.
So especially during COVID, we have an opportunity that the SOC and its people will shine. All of us, we need to move all the employees in beginning of COVID to work from home. Afterwards, we need to support hybrid. And this is a little bit less related to security, but the question of the executives were often, is the organization effectively working from home? This is a question that network monitoring and security monitoring the tools available could translate and give an answer. This is number one. But the second question was, are we working from home or are we working from everywhere secured? And this is a question that the SOC should say yes, no, and to explain. So it's really challenging. So and the third topic is to continue to supporting innovations, to continue supporting digital transformation, to continue supporting SaaS. Many of our organizations are moving applications to SaaS. Does the SOC has visibility to SaaS? Can they see SaaS to SaaS connectivity, APIs? All of this is a huge, huge challenge for our SOC. And the people within the SOC, it's very important that with this transformation to support that they do not get frustrated, tired, or burn out. And as we all know, if we lose someone within our SOC, how long will it take us to replace them? So this is a little bit less on technology, more on the managing and processes. But definitely, in what I have seen, that many organizations that taste from a SOC operational perspective and get the value, they are not willing to let it disappear. And the question is, what tools, what procedures are we letting the SOC get into versus budget, economical situation, shift, and change of challenges? Okay.
Thank you so much, and everyone, thank you. I think it's a really interesting discussion with an ever-changing world of security operations, and I myself really am looking forward to see what kind of solutions will come up and be created in the upcoming years. with that, I think that we can take some questions from the crowd, if there are. But again, just to thank Leo, Jagriti, and Johnny for their answers and their candor. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, we've
You're
got a
welcome.
couple of questions right now. And if anyone else has questions, now is a great time to drop them into the Q&A so we can make sure that we can really emphasize or go back and clarify or talk about something new that we haven't touched on yet. So drop those in right now. I have one that I know Leo has an opinion on that I want to bring up for the group here. So if you have to make a choice between EDR and NDR, where are you getting the best security telemetry for threat detection analysis? Some teams are having to make choices about, do we get this tool or that tool based on limited budgets? Where are you getting the better bang for your buck in your teams from EDR or NDR? Leo, I know you
Okay.
have an opinion here,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna pick you out here to expand on that.
Yeah, no problem. No, I think for me it's EDR because there are a lot of new tools that are coming out, a lot of new acronyms. But for me, I'm always a little cautious about the latest and greatest because sometimes those tools aren't quite mature yet, right? So if you're going to make an investment in a tool of that nature, you need to. I want results right now. I want to know that it's going to reduce the number of, let's say, infections. It's going to do this or that. So for me, I want to know that tool is going to produce from day one once I implement it. Some of these other tools also to require a little bit more of a change of how your whole overall environment is, right? For example, the SIM. Some of these solutions have their own SIM component. So are you really ready to make a leap from one SIM vendor to another in order to take advantage of that? That's a big discussion, Ryan. That's a big investment as well. So you kind of have to weigh it, and make your own decision, of course. But for me, I'd rather invest in something that's a little bit more mature right now and give it some time, watch the market, see how it progresses. And if something does come out as being a leader, then definitely I'll be interested in it.
Anyone else want to weigh in on EDR versus NDR and where you're seeing the better value?
I can maybe give one point. It's an interesting question, but I think as everyone here said, the endpoint is a pivotal place in the network where cyber attacks and particularly malware can find a place to install itself. You can't install yourself over the network. So you have to have your base of operation, that's the endpoint or the server. And from the endpoint, you can see outgoing and incoming network traffic. So you have that information.
But
Please, Johnny, yeah.
I will give you the other side of the coin. I can bet you that you go to every network you go, you will find networks that there are some PCs or some servers without endpoint security at all. Okay,
right.
Someone installed something that was doing something, forgot to tell, and their NDR will help you to understand that something was going from that IP address to other location. And the most important is where you aggregate all the data and from the breadcrumbs to understand the story. Okay, so not every SIM or SOC can build a story, a journey of something that took place days, weeks, months ago, because every system has different logs, every system has different kind of alerts, and you need a very high level of sophistication. And said that, every time there is an incident, you go and you will see there is no enough logs, or the logs were deleted, or no DNS, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, and it means a lot coming from you, coming from Checkpoint, because of course network visibility and detection is your bread and butter. And I think the point you mentioned is really important. Like if something is not covered, but you have network monitoring, you see that network traffic coming. So the most important point is making sure you have visibility across the different steps of the investigation, right?
Yeah, it's easy to say it. It's a little bit more difficult to implement it. My neighborhood is just 7,000 people around the world, with, I would say, half of them are experts in cybersecurity. So imagine some of them are developing these tools, so they know how to switch them off. So it's a bit tricky, shadow IT, etc., etc. Okay, so you understand what I'm talking about.
For sure.
All right, and changing subjects, I've got another topic here, and this one is a little bit broad, so I'm going to be interested to see, how you all take this. Can you talk a bit about use case development, testing, and implementation? And so I don't know, Shal, if you want to
like if it's
there, or
if it's a like use case or testing generally of solutions, maybe Jagriti, if you can elaborate. I know you do a lot of POCs of new technology.
Yeah, for sure, Shal and Shannon. Yes, I mean, so every time there is a new case that we are working on, and with use case, we create a lot of test cases which we want to implement on a solution, say implement it on the existing solution, see if we can achieve what we're trying to achieve using the current set of tools that we have. But if the current tools are not able to offer, then we definitely rely on the new emerging tools which have such capabilities, which complement our existing setup, basically. So, of course, it is to minimize the risk Joni was talking about, right? So EDR versus NDR, and there is a big gap where you do not see any tools deployed, any EDR tools deployed. And today, most EDR tools, they are on, say, SaaS-based solution, right? So even though you install them, sometimes you find that they are not really reporting to the console. So the insight that you want to draw out of those tools, you're not able to, because they are not on the console, they are not in the live environment. Even though they are on the system, but you don't see them on the console. So threats are not coming. The policies that you're trying to push through the EDR tools, they are not reaching those machines. So there is a big problem. So for sure, what we do is that we always keep an eye on the gap that we see in our company. Okay. With that, we also, try to implement use cases that can, so of course, if I can just add one more point, that EDR tools, of course, they do scan our infrastructure. But what if you want to do on-demand scan, on your machine? How do you implement it? How do you achieve it? You just want to, scan everything in the system and see that, the results that you want to see. How do you extract such information? So of course, in scenarios like these, you need a tool which can complement, your existing setup. So for sure, I mean, I think this is really, really important for us to do that. Yeah.
Interesting. Just to add, sorry, Johnny. Just to add that I really agree with the point, Jagriti, to see like what you can do with your existing solutions, and first just analyzing the gap clearly, understanding what you need. I think that's really important. Sorry, Johnny, go ahead.
So there is a whole industry developed in the last few years, because we built a lot of systems to protect and systems to monitor, but who is telling us that actually all those systems are in line, doing the work they should do? And what if someone did a mistake or opened too much the system? So there are systems that will validate what we are doing, and we have seen nation-state attacks that they actually will go and will switch off the SOC alerting system, so logs will not be generated or will not be sent from that machine to the scene. And we have seen forensics techniques that only by checking where logs were deleted, we can understand that someone malicious has actually visited that environment. So it's like in the movies, but it's real. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's truly Next level. That's really interesting.
All right, and I've got another question here, and this one I think Johnny has an opinion on. So I want to start by opening up to Johnny first. So for SOCs and automation and AI, where do you think do you think that we're going to be expanding in that automated SOC AI direction in the next few years, with less human intervention, less humans having to take control of the alert, that's leaving more things up to the rules? And Johnny, I know you have an opinion here, and I just want to try and scope this in a little bit. What areas do you think are most promising in the SOC for that automation and AI right now to you?
So we all have seen, I assume, ChatGPT and have played with it. It's really awesome. It's a game changer. And what if I tell you that already, I would say that in my organization, about almost 50% of the detection and mitigation engines in the threat prevention portfolios are based on AI. So this is powerful. Now, we don't see it, but, and again, as I mentioned in my written answer, we don't see yet SOC technologies using AI, or an AI engine is telling us that we might have a problematic user. Now, it will be really interesting to understand, the needle, you say the needle within the haystack. So if an engine, piece of technology will tell me that there is something suspicious, and this is not just noise, but this is really some, in the past it was called a user behavior analysis. But if you can tell me that Leo or Jagriti are behaving weird based on their conduct or their regular conduct, something changed, so maybe their user is compromised, this is going to be a game changer. And again, I'm not looking for something that will create more noise. I am looking for a system or a solution that will tell me, look, something really bad is going on, and you need to attend and put focus. Okay?
I'm interested from the other panelists as well, what you think is, whether you think AI and automation is the direction we'll see really expanding in the next few years, and what specific kinds of areas you think are the most promising.
I'll let you go first if you want.
Yeah. Yes, I truly think so. I mean, I think it's only going to evolve. We're only going to get better. So today, if you ask me, where do we stand? I think we heavily rely on the automated solutions tools that can help us, counter the problems that we are seeing. So yes, I think it's going to get increased in coming years, wherein we'll be dependent on the tools. Of course, you can only be dependent on the tools as long you want, how much you want, but there is again a gap that'll always remain. So I think we also need to always think about that. How do we, if not finish that gap, how do we reduce it inch by inch? And I think that's the target. I mean, we can never achieve everything all at once. As they say, security can never be 100%. It takes a lot of work, day-to-day's job, your effort to make sure that the security is taken care of the way it should. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, Johnny, you made a really good point with the UBA example. I think if AI can help develop that or make it even better, I think that's going to be a really important feature, right, for many organizations, because I think a lot of organizations do use UBA right now. But I think if you can use AI to help enhance that, and any other solution you have right now currently in place, I think that's going to be a great change, right? But no, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where things go, especially in the next year. Now that AI is really coming forward. So yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in seeing where it's going to go from here. So.
Yeah, and another question here. So especially in times with the tight budget, for your teams, what are you seeing as the core tools that you must have? What's your must-have tools that you're like, we can't function without this? And then to expand on that, the next part of this question, it's a two-parter, is what are the core skills and responsibilities where it's not the tools, but your team needs to pick up on that to have that minimum security foundation that you're really looking to build for your teams?
So shall I, Shannon?
Go ahead.
So first of all, we need to build from bottom up. So first of all, based on risk assessment, we need to have a plan, a playbook. Okay, so what we're going to do in order to secure the organization. This is number one. Then we need to implement and make sure that implementation is being efficiently. So we need to validate. And only later I would monitor and develop a cybersecurity incident handling, which this is the SOC organization. Based on the organization, on the size, on the budget, on the headcount, etc., I will go with the correct tools. But guys, we can prevent cyber attacks. Okay, we can prevent now, not in 1 year or 5 years from now. All the attacks you have seen in the last 5 years, they could have been prevented with tools that were available. So it's like, guys, instead of investing on video surveillance, let's lock the door. That's much cheaper. Okay, so we need to lock the door, we need to put doors, we need to put fences, and then we build the surveillance system and the video recording system that if there is an incident, we can go back and see what's going on. Sorry to put it that simplistic, but we tend to overcomplex things.
Anyone else want to pick up on that to offer more general advice or really offer some suggestions on what your team's seeing as the core tools and core responsibilities, core skills?
Sure. I'll share. I think for non-technicals, because I think, of course, you always want, to make sure that their communication is very important, right? They're able to communicate with the end user or whoever the audience may be, because you need to get your point across whenever you're dealing with an alert. So you need to make sure that they understand it, why it's important, so that you can get their buy-in or their cooperation, so you can continue. And then you also want your SOC to feel empowered, right? You want them to know that, hey, they have the power to make those important decisions to protect the organization. So I think those are really key. When it comes to tools, it's going to vary for company, right? I mean, I guess you have to kind of look at where are most of your threats coming from, right? Is it phishing emails or emails? Is it network, like, are they people downloading stuff? Is it USB devices and so forth? So it really depends on your organization. I think emails, of course, number one, I think, for many companies. So right, yeah, you definitely want to have a good email security to be a solution that will be able to mitigate, block a lot of that out. And then whatever gets through, for me, I think it would be an EDR solution. But because then you still need something to be able to fight back with, right? You have a compromise on a computer, you need something that's going to be able to give you that capability to isolate or run certain commands or whatever, investigate computer. So that's kind of, for me, how it goes.
So Leo, allow me to complement. Again, I am only 25 years dealing with cybersecurity. If you build a building, let's say you put Cisco on all the building, don't put security from Cisco, because they build the building, okay? Yeah. And the same, if you're doing Microsoft email, don't get just enough with Microsoft security for email. So always put something complementary that will put an eye on the guy that built it, because the guy that built it is excellent building, like AWS. So if you, AWS, they are doing fantastic job on allowing things to work. That's their mission. Now, security puts something or someone that's specialized on security. Okay, it will save you a lot of headache later, believe me.
I agree, definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
All right, and one last question, which we have a comment from an attendee, Ron, and I think I want to actually pose this as a bit of a question. Do you think we're at the point where we still need human beings to say it's a false positive? And how are you, where do you think how can we deal with that false positive problem where the traditional approach has been to throw more humans at the problem, and how can we manage that it's a false positive problem?
I mean, if people want to do it, it's their wish. But then I think this is not an efficient or effective solution if we want to rely on people doing or handling the tickets that we see through EDR solution and other tools. So yes, I think automated solutions comes very handy at that time. Which can help us identify, which of these cases are false positives ones, and which of these are true positives. Maybe we can put our human on the true positives to see what kind of true positive these are. Do we really need to have use cases, playbooks created in order for us to really log them in the next time they appear in our infrastructure, right? So such mindset is what will take us to the next level in our game. So yes, we can always put people, but where do we want to put people is where the decision has to be taken. Yeah.
In my opinion, it's a balance between people that are implementing more technological solutions to help us to cope with the challenge, because we understand that if we throw the problem is in a magnitude that if we put more people, the problem will still getting bigger and bigger. So we need to put relevant technological solutions to allow us, and the people will help us tweaking and looking on the next challenge. And if there is a next challenge, the solutions will not adapt quickly by themselves. So it's a balance between the two.
For me, it's just, I think to reduce false positives, I think from my experience, it's mostly, it's always going to be there because people are going to always be creating new products and new in-house solutions to deploy to production, right? But I think if you have the right processes in place and say, okay, look, this is how your development should go, and this is the way you should release it, I think you can reduce a lot of the false positives you have right now, because most of the time it's something somebody created and they just didn't notify anybody about it. So I think having processes in place will help reduce a lot of that noise. So.
Great. All right, well, that wraps up everything for us for our questions. Thank you everyone for joining and for bringing your questions today. I hope you got some useful answers and some new food for thought from the discussion with our panelists. And thank you to our panel for offering your advice and insights today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you so
guys.
much. I had a wonderful time with everyone. Thank you
you all.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you guys.